What's up, YouTube? Welcome back to another episode of Battle in the Trenches NFL Week 14 edition. It's the fantasy playoffs, and we got your starts and sits at wide receiver, quarterback, running back, tight end, all the major positions that help you push you through the playoffs, hopefully to that fantasy football championship, hopefully ending your season on a victory. If you didn't make it to the playoffs, sorry, there's always next year. But hey, maybe you're still competing for something like weekly high money. Maybe you want to spoil someone's season in your losers bracket. Who knows? We're here for fun. We're here to give you the information. Subscribe to the YouTube channel if you're new. We really appreciate it. Drop a comment. All of your start sit questions for this week. Any help you need for the playoff push, we got you. Like I said, subscribe, like the video. It really helps us out. Without further ado, let's check into my co-host Ryan. You can find him at Twitter or on Twitter at Bootleg Fantasy. You can also find me at Steve_CTP. Ryan, what's going on, man?
First, Steve, let's get some housekeeping out of the way. Just generally, this is a positive thing. Even though my life currently is in shambles, my football life. We have a giveaway, Steve. We're giving away somebody who ruined my previous week, made your week great. And if you have him on your fantasy team, he's been absolutely tremendous all season. He's my personal wide receiver one. And that is a Davante Adams signed jersey, Steve. You can't really see it. He signed it there. I mean, you got the authenticity as well.
Ooh, that white one. Ooh, that's nice.
Listen, the white one, I put a poll out. I've been teasing it a little bit. I put a poll out like a week ago asking what everyone's favorite jersey of the Packers is, and resoundingly enough, it was a white one. I was honestly expecting the green, but nonetheless, we're giving that away as long as you're subscribed. And make sure you comment below. We're gonna pick from the comments below this video to give this jersey away. We're gonna give it away Week 16 championship week in normal fantasy football leagues. I'm sorry if you're a Week 17 championship league. That's not how you should do it. But we're gonna give it away Week 16. So make sure to leave a comment below this video. What should we have them say, Steve? What do you think would be the best thing for them to say? Who their favorite wide receiver in the league is? I think that's probably
that's definitely fine. Your favorite wide receiver. Easy. Yep.
I feel like that's
it doesn't have to be the best wide receiver. Your favorite wide receiver.
Yeah, just give me your favorite wide receiver. And we'll go through the comments and we're gonna pick a winner. So make sure you're subscribed. Make sure you leave that comment. We'll go through that. But without further ado, Steve, there was some big news that dropped. Probably 2 hours ago at this point. Carson Wentz is benched, and if anyone knows anything about me, if you're on this channel and you don't follow me on Twitter, I'm an Eagles fan. And this is going to shake up the general landscape of fantasy beyond just football. I told you to start Myles Sanders because they were playing against the Packers this past week, the worst run defense in the league. What did they do with Myles Sanders, Steve? I know that you personally started Myles Sanders on my good word, and he didn't exactly help you win your week this week. I don't understand what they're doing in Philadelphia. I don't understand what their plan is going forward in Philadelphia. All I know is that the plan that they've had in place up to this point has been incorrect. They have not put pieces around Carson Wentz to make him successful. Their offensive line, across the board, maybe the worst offensive line in football. He's been sacked 47 times, the most in the league. He has no time back there. His weapons have been
let it out.
Few and far between, Steve. And we're seeing guys like Justin Jefferson and CeeDee Lamb and Brandon Aiyuk and all T. Higgins. All these rookie wide receivers make plays. Jalen Reagor has come up short up until Wentz was benched. I don't know if it's a Wentz thing, but there was better players available. So hopefully the Eagles figure it out. Hopefully if you have Myles Sanders and you're still competing, I don't know if you should play him. I'm pretty sure we're going to get into that a little bit more, but the Philadelphia Eagles are an absolute travesty of an organization currently, and I hope that your fantasy team has been better than the Eagles have been this year.
My co-host Ryan, everybody, give him a round of applause. Drop a sympathy comment in the comments. He teased some Myles Sanders. We'll get to him later, but let's get into the starts and sits to help you win your fantasy football playoff matchup. Week 1 of the playoffs. leading you
I
to
read
that
the show notes,
championship.
Steve.
Yeah, yeah.
I saw. You're gonna get on your own little rant probably.
It won't be as long as that, but let's go ahead and get into the stardom quarterbacks, and I'll start us off with a guy I benched continuous weeks and told you to send him continuous weeks a couple weeks ago for a long stretch, and I'm starting him this week because he's on a tear, and that's Ryan Tannehill. He's coming back into early season form, last season form where he was so efficient and whatnot. He's getting a lot of his receivers involved, even in a game where A.J. Brown probably was one of the worst football players on the field on Sunday. He was still able to have a decent day, but Corey Davis was the number one wide receiver up until, we haven't seen the Baltimore Ravens game at this point of our recording, but assuming he's going to finish as the number one wide receiver, he's had a fantastic season. I like what's going on in that offense. Obviously, they were coming back in that game against Cleveland, so it was a really good Ryan Tannehill game script. Going against Jacksonville, I could see this being an equal feel. They're going to run the ball, they're going to throw the ball. I think you should have a solid day. I think you should feel confident starting him in your fantasy playoffs. I'm also starting Justin Herbert versus Atlanta, who just had an awful game against New England. That New England game was just disgusting. I mean, everyone was just praising Justin Herbert the whole entire season, and then last week everyone wants to be like, "Oh, what did I say about Justin Herbert?" All the people who didn't like him, they want to get on him and say, "Oh, I told you he was bad." It was one game. Those things happen, especially to a rookie quarterback. Belichick was able to phase him out. It was an overall bad game. He's coming against Atlanta. Atlanta's a much easier defense to face than New England. I like him to bounce back in this game. Keenan Allen's going to get involved. Hunter Henry will get involved. He was shut down. That was a little tease. We'll get to him later. But I feel confident in Justin Herbert. He got you probably to this point. You probably picked him up early in the season, and he probably rode you to the playoffs. Hopefully last week didn't hurt you and get you kicked out of the playoffs. But I would trust him this week in this good matchup against Atlanta. Who are you starting at quarterback, Ryan?
So you thought the Philadelphia Eagles rant was done, Steve? It's not. It's never done. I mean, it's 26 years of life for me. It's never been over.
I gotta make the thumbnail of this video should be you with tears.
It might as well be, because that's how I've been feeling. I even got a sadness burrito. That's my thing when my Eagles stink. I ordered it. I did the contactless delivery thing. It was a bowl. It ended up being a bowl.
That's fitting.
Are you kidding me? I just wanted to eat a burrito.
It's the bowl you couldn't get this year. It's a symbol of it.
Well, I'm glad that one showed up. It was.
Hey, it's still possible. The Eagles have a playoff chance, but go ahead.
Well, I'm starting Taysom Hill against my Philadelphia Eagles. Darius Slay, not sure his status for this week. Left the game limping. Came into the game limping. Got torched, and we don't know what he's going to do this week. So Taysom Hill should be able to pick on Avonte Maddox, who's been just as bad, and Jalen Mills is probably going to be the cornerback that fills in. So Taysom Hill, his high floor, where he gets to run the ball 10 to 15 times and then gets to throw the ball 20 times, he's a safe play. If you picked up Taysom Hill to be your tight end the one week, he's slowly developing into a fantasy point scorer at quarterback. So if you have him and you got some lesser guys, I would definitely start Taysom Hill this week. I'm also starting Big Ben against Buffalo. I know it's not a great matchup, right? But Buffalo didn't look as good defensively as I hoped they would. I know they ended up with a pick or two. Nick Mullins is a trash quarterback. I mean, that's not really news to anybody. And Big Ben's coming off the first loss of the year. I think that they're going to kind of refocus. I think that they were pressing a little bit in that game against Washington. I know Washington has a great pass defense, but they looked weird. I feel like they had 5 or 6 drops. I know Deontay Johnson had 2 or 3, and I feel like Ebron had just as many. So I think that they need to just kind of refocus. And this game, that's going to be my favorite game this week. This Buffalo-Pittsburgh game. Like, it's easily my favorite game. Just because this game could end up being like 45-41, and I think Big Ben's definitely somebody who benefits from that, especially because for some odd reason they can't get the run game going even a little bit. I know Benny Snell's not a great running back, but with the offensive weapons they have, they should be able to at least plunge for 4 yards, and they just can't do that right now.
Yeah, they need an effective James Conner to be back, and they need to implement that part of the game. I think that really hurt them against Washington.
Yeah.
Big Ben threw the ball over 50 times. I can see the same thing happening in this game. If Buffalo is able to do what they did to the 49ers, Big Ben's going to throw the ball even more. That's why I like this game, too.
Oh, yeah.
And we'll tease a little bit of Josh Allen. I was kind of nervous for Week 14, his matchup against Pittsburgh coming up, but after what he just did to the 49ers, I'm not as nervous. He played really well. He looked really good. And Pittsburgh can actually be beat through the air. So if you have Josh Allen, I would definitely consider starting him if you were already slating him to be on your bench against Pittsburgh. What he did last week was a game changer. So let's move on to the sit-'em quarterbacks. And I'm sitting Jared Goff versus New England. And this is kind of going off what they just did to Justin Herbert and the Chargers. I don't want to be a part of that. Jared Goff has fallen on his face against bad defense or good defenses, and what New England just did is kind of scary to throw a guy like Jared Goff in there, who's usually a middling quarterback. He's usually not ranked higher for me than 15, unless it's a smash spot. So unless you're really, really hurting at quarterback, which you probably aren't in the playoffs if you are, I wouldn't use Jared Goff as a streamer this week. So put him on your bench. I'm also sitting Derek Carr versus Indianapolis. Derek Carr and the Raiders almost just lost to the Jets. Derek Carr had a good game for sure. Darren Waller just went off. We love to see that stuff. But going against Indianapolis, the Indy defense is back. They were able to just beat down on Houston and the Texans. And their defense is back. DeForest Buckner's there. They're getting much healthier. They're back to their early season form where they're just a dominant defense. And Derek Carr and the Raiders are going to have trouble. Derek Carr is a streamer by definition in good matchups. And I don't think this is anything of a good matchup. I think Indy is back up to the top, like I mentioned, a top 3 defense against fantasy quarterbacks and a lot of other fantasy positions. So I cannot trust Derek Carr as my week 1 playoff matchup starter for my quarterback position. It's just not happening. So not starting Derek Carr. Who you sitting?
I mean, I'm glad you're sitting Derek Carr. That guy, the fakest good quarterback in the league. Yeah. Aside from that, I'm sitting Deshaun Watson. It's kind of a bold play. I get that. But he's going up against the Bears. The Bears have kind of refound their running game. And like we've harped on before, Houston's run defense, atrocious. It's absolutely garbage. And, Deshaun Watson without Will Fuller didn't look as great to me. I know he got some of the younger guys involved. But Will Fuller just adds another level to that offense, and after losing Hopkins and then Will Fuller, it's tough for me to start Deshaun Watson in, I guess, rough defensive matchups. I really like Watson as a quarterback. It's just the fact that that team as a whole has kind of a lost season, and their offense is a little suspect at this point. It's not saying that maybe next week you can start him. I think you definitely can. But this week, sitting Deshaun Watson. I'm also sitting Kirk Cousins. Sitting him against Tampa Bay. It's one of those bright lights games for Kirk where he's going against the greatest quarterback of all time that I just don't feel comfortable in. I really do think that Tampa Bay needs to kind of refocus. They're coming off a bye. It's a rough spot for Kirk Cousins to be a plus guy in. There's options that are out there that you can definitely go to over Kirk Cousins. And do you really want to start Kirk Cousins in the fantasy playoffs? Last year, Kirk Cousins put up a 4 spot in week 16. It's just kind of how Kirk goes. As the season goes, Kirk slows. So I really don't think he's a great play. I mean, I understand he's been about the same as Russell Wilson over the last 5 or so weeks in fantasy points. It helps that Justin Jefferson's absolutely eating, but I really think it's going to be a tough play for him this week.
All right, let's move on to the running backs that are going to help you win your fantasy football playoff matchup in Week 14. And my first stardom running back is Melvin Gordon going against Carolina. He's getting a lot of work lately. 3 straight weeks, over 12 carries. Last week goes over 130 yards against the Chiefs. That's a great game for Melvin Gordon. He didn't find the end zone, but he still had a good fantasy day. And now against Carolina, and we know their run defense is not great. Maybe the team is starting to realize what they have in Melvin Gordon. They need to use him more than they use Phillip Lindsay. Definitely more than 50% snap share or workload opportunity for both of them. Melvin Gordon needs to continue to get to work. If he can have another good game where he goes over 75 yards, I think he finds the end zone in this one against Carolina's defense. So I actually feel kind of confident starting Melvin Gordon. And that kind of segues into my next one, which is I'm going to start Myles Gaskin against the Chiefs, where Melvin Gordon just tore them up on the ground. And that's because Myles Gaskin is back for the Dolphins. I expect this to be a good game. He's getting a lot of work, just like he left off before the injury. He was the feature back. He was there on all 3 downs. Continues to get the ball, a lot of touches. Going against Kansas City, I think this should be a good game. I'm actually excited to watch this game. Miami is surprisingly, we've mentioned this all season long, a really good team. They have a great defense. I don't think Patrick Mahomes is going to tear them up. I think it's going to be a great game to watch, and I think Miami's going to be in it. And that means they're going to be able to run the ball. So Myles Gaskin's going to be a huge part of that game plan. So I'm excited to watch both these running backs, but Myles Gaskin mostly against the Kansas City Chiefs. I think you got to throw him in there. I think he's a fine flex play. Most likely if you picked him up, he's probably your flex. If he's your RB2 and you're in the playoffs, congratulations. That's fantastic. But I think you feel confident starting him this week as your starting running back in Week 14. Playoffs matchup, round 1. Let's go. Who are you starting?
Yeah, I mean, I got to start my boy Kenyan Drake against the Giants. It seems like that offense is sputtering a little bit in Arizona. It's very apparent that shoulder, AC joint, whatever is ailing Kyler Murray is legit. It's a legit concern. So there's more opportunities for these running backs in a matchup that's pretty tough. I mean, the Giants' defense isn't a joke. James Bradbury might be one of the best corners in the league, and I wouldn't really argue if somebody came to me and brought stats on James Bradbury being the best corner. So it's going to be tough sledding again for DeAndre Hopkins. I think that the Cardinals need to establish the run early. I think Kenyan Drake is still their main guy. I mean, he gave you a solid 14 last week. He's pretty much in line for 14 a week if he finds the end zone. So I really do like Drake this week. I'm also starting whoever starts between DeAndre Swift and Adrian Peterson. I know Swift is apparently banged up. Adrian Peterson said he's not the same as he was. Kind of seems like a play by AP, but they're playing Green Bay. Apparently the Eagles didn't get the memo that Green Bay is susceptible to getting absolutely gashed by running backs. Not sure why. But whoever starts between these two guys is in line for a solid day out there. I mean, they gave up 250 total yards to Jonathan Taylor and David Montgomery the 2 weeks prior to the Eagles. So this is a matchup where you want to take advantage of whoever the running back is. So I'm definitely, if you have Swift and he's good to go, I'm starting him. And if Adrian Peterson's out there for some odd reason, I think he scored 2 touchdowns the last 2 weeks, get AP in your lineup.
Man, tons of good segues as we move into my sit-em running backs, because my first sit-em running back, we've teased him the whole show so far, and that's Miles Sanders for the Eagles going against New Orleans, who are the best rush defense in the league. It's a brutal matchup. And last week was one of the best matchups for Miles Sanders, and the team could not get him involved. You know what they did in a smash spot for Miles Sanders? They signed Jordan Howard, brought him off the practice squad, and gave him a bunch of carries because that's what they had to do. That was the issue. They needed to get Jordan Howard on the field to be able to get the run game going. That's what they had to do, of course. I just can't trust Miles Sanders. Inefficient on the ground, not getting enough touches, not involved in the offense the way he should be. It's just not working. And, of course, Jalen Hurts has to be the starter now, which I was already settled on sitting Miles Sanders, which I'm going to do. Now I'm like, maybe Miles Sanders, but I can't fall for it again. I can't. I have a league where I have DeAndre Swift and Miles Sanders as my flex starter. Fantastic running backs on that team. But I'm starting DeAndre Swift, like you just mentioned. I'm going to start him. I cannot get burned again by Miles Sanders in week 1 of the playoffs against this brutal matchup against New Orleans. You can't feel confident. Desperation play only. I think it's time, people. If he goes off and you somehow make it to the next round, maybe you can start him then, but this is not the week to start him. He has not shown anything. It's happened too many weeks in a row. Maybe it's not his fault, but it's fantasy production, people. It's not happening. So you got to sit Miles Sanders this week. I'm also sitting David Johnson versus Chicago. I don't like the game script for David Johnson in this game. Like you mentioned, you don't like Deshaun Watson. I think the Bears are actually up in this game. I think it's a low-scoring game, as I predict in most Bears games. And I don't like David Johnson against that front seven. If they get Hakeem Hicks back, that's going to be a big deal. David Johnson's going to have a really rough day. He definitely looks okay coming off out of his concussion, but a guy I don't feel confident. A lot of these guys we're mentioning now, maybe you have to start him, but I just want you to temper your expectations against a tough Chicago defense. So if you can sit him, sit him. If you got to play him, don't have high hopes for him. Who are you sitting?
I mean, I've got to sit Devin Singletary and Zach Moss. Both of these Buffalo running backs looked weird. Zach Moss, I don't know if he's hurt. I think he ended up being hurt. But when he played this past week against San Fran, that was bad. It was terrible, and we both had the same thought for fantasy purposes. We're both Josh Allen guys. Why Josh Allen ended up getting the -2 for that fumble, beyond me for Zach Moss. Zach Moss, it hit him in the gut, and all of a sudden just forgot that he had to take the handoff. That's aside the point. They're playing against a tough team in Pittsburgh. Pittsburgh's run defense is pretty stout. TJ Watt can smell that Defensive Player of the Year. He needs to put on a nice showing at the end. And to be honest, this could be a shootout, and I think it's through the air. I think Josh Allen wants to prove that he's also an MVP candidate. So I don't love the Buffalo running backs this week. Tough matchup, and I don't think it's going to be a game script for them. I'm also sitting Kareem Hunt. Everyone's talking about, should we play Nick Chubb this week? Yes, you should play Nick Chubb this week. He's looked absolutely unbelievable since returning. He's the best pure running back in the NFL. And since returning, Kareem Hunt has looked pretty brutal. I mean, his last 3 games, he's got like 37 carries for slightly over 100 yards. When Nick Chubb's ripping off 6 yards a carry and Kareem Hunt's ripping off 3 yards a carry, I think you know how this is going to go. They're up against Baltimore. Baltimore's pretty stout. They've got LJ Fort at linebacker. He's pretty solid in pass defense. So it's not a Kareem Hunt game to me. I think if the Browns want to win this game, they need to make it a Nick Chubb game completely. And Kareem Hunt has been inefficient. So don't get cute. Don't get Kareem Hunt in your lineup. I don't like that matchup for him at all.
Yeah, and historically, Nick Chubb's done pretty good against Baltimore, so I wouldn't let the matchup scare you. Moving on to the stardom wide receivers that you need to have in your lineup to move on to the next round of the playoffs. And my first one is a guy I mentioned earlier, and that's Corey Davis. This guy is quietly having a fantastic season. People don't like the name. Apparently, his name doesn't have a lot of good value anymore because of constant seasons of disappointment. But him and Ryan Tannehill got something going this year. Every game he's played this year, I looked this up. I didn't find the stat. I found it myself looking through some of the game logs. 65 yards or a touchdown in every game he's played this year. That's really good. That's consistency right there. If your wide receiver gets 65 yards, he's most likely has 4 to 5 catches. That's not a bad game if he doesn't score and get in the end zone. That's okay. But scoring a touchdown in those same games or in a different game, like every game this season, that's consistency right there, people. That means you can trust him. Going against Jacksonville, you can trust Corey Davis in your lineup. In week 1 of the playoffs, you can trust him. So I would throw him in your lineup with confidence. Don't think twice about it. Make room for him. Get a guy out that you're concerned about who's a bigger name. Put Corey Davis in. This is how you win your fantasy football championships, people. Every year, there's players like in the past, Robbie Anderson. How many championships has Robbie Anderson won you? A couple for me. That's happened for me. And throughout the season, he wasn't great, but he's a playoff masher, and that's what Corey Davis is about to do. Yeah, I just said that. I don't know. All right, moving on to my next stardom wide receiver, and that's Chris Godwin for the Tampa Bay Buccaneers going against Minnesota. I love this matchup. I think Tom Brady's going to have a great game. Godwin is still top 10 in the league in average yards of separation at 5.5. That's a lot of separation. Love that. And since week 7, he's averaging 8 targets a game. In the past 2 weeks, he's averaging 9. Getting tons of targets. He's going to continue to get peppered. This is going to be a game where Minnesota is going to be down because of the points that Tampa Bay scores early, and I think it's Chris Godwin. And if for whatever for whatever reason, it's the other way around. Chris Godwin's just going to be even better. So I really like him. I know he hasn't been great this year. Last year he was a wide receiver 2. He's certainly not this year, but he's still very involved in this offense, and I expect Tampa Bay to throw in this game, and Chris Godwin, I think, is going to eat along with Mike Evans. I do like that play too, but Chris Godwin, feel confident. I know you're not confident right now, but trust me, I think you need to put Chris Godwin in your lineup, but don't think twice. All right, who are you starting?
It's
a lot of praises,
a
lot of little monologues for me today. I'm just trying to get you to trust me.
Yeah, I appreciate your kind words, but it's time for me to get a little slotty, Steve. I got to go with Cole Beasley. I love Cole Beasley, and getting slotty is something that's needed in PPR formats. And wide receiver 19 on the year, Cole Beasley, was absolutely magnificent last night. And when John Brown's out, it seems to be, instead of Josh Allen looking to take the top off immediately, he just finds Cole Beasley for his nice little dump offs of 8 yards, 12 yards. Then Beasley breaks free for 25 yards, and then 8 yards. Cole Beasley's been great if you have him on your fantasy team. I don't know why he wasn't utilized like this in Dallas. I'm not that upset as an Eagles fan, but he's looked great this year. And Cole Beasley against Pittsburgh, they've got those safeties. It's going to be interesting to see how the safeties play, just because Stephon Diggs is still in Buffalo, so they can't really cheat on Cole Beasley. So Beasley should see his very solid floor. I mean, if he sees 8 targets, catches 6 of them, turns them into 10 yards a catch, finds the end zone, you feel great about the Bees. And there's no way that you spent high capital on Cole Beasley. You probably picked him up off the waiver wire week like 5 or 6 when he was only getting 4 catches a game. So feel good about Cole Beasley this week. I'm also starting another guy from the slot, Jamison Crowder against Seattle. Seattle, terrible defense. The Eagles made them look great. Neither here nor there. Jamison Crowder's the number 1 in New York. He's been a great safety blanket. He was everything that David Herndon was supposed to be. David Herndon? Chris Herndon. David Herndon was a relief pitcher for the Phillies. That's irrelevant.
Love it.
Chris Herndon, was supposed to be solid. Jamison Crowder eats up the middle of the field. I don't know why it took him to break out like 2 teams later after Washington, but it's great to see him really develop a rapport with Sam Darnold. It feels like Sam Darnold trusts him completely, and he sees those 9-10 targets that you love to see in PPR formats. Are the 25-yard catches flashy? Yeah, but Jamison Crowder sees a ton of volume, and he's the only guy that is seemingly trusted. And now that Denzel Mims is taking off the top, Rashad Perriman's getting healthy, he's going to be open in the middle of the field. So I really do like Crowder this week.
Love it. Love the picks. Let's go ahead and move on to the sit-em wide receivers. And I'm sitting DeVante Parker versus KC. Last week we had high hopes that Ryan Fitzpatrick would be the quarterback in that smash matchup against Cincinnati. And it didn't happen that way. Tua was the quarterback. And even though DeVante Parker continues to see red zone targets, which I think by my count by watching the game, I think was 3 or 4, where usually Ryan Fitzpatrick would throw the ball up to him and be able to, win that 50-50 ball. DeVante Parker is pretty good at that. And Tua was just throwing it at the defender's back. And most receivers cannot go over the top of the defender and reach down and grab the ball for a touchdown. The balls are not being placed where they need to, and 35 yards receiving is not going to get it done unless you have a touchdown. I don't like what I'm seeing with Tua. DeVante Parker isn't really startable unless it's a desperation in a deep league, as long as Tua is a quarterback. I know we want different. We want Fitz. I tweeted about Fitz all day on Sunday. I said, where's Fitz? Pull Tua. All of this strictly for fantasy. I want that team to be successful, whatever they have to do, but I wanted Fitz. I didn't get it. So I'm sitting DeVante Parker this week against Kansas City. I'm also sitting Jerry, Jeudy, Ryan. Quick game here. You got 5 seconds there to answer this question. What is his receptions, targets, and receiving yards over the last 3 weeks total? Just name some numbers.
Well,
and one game in between was Kendall Hinton as quarterback. I understand.
Well, I started him this past week. I won, which was fine. So okay. I know he had 1 for 5 this last week.
Okay.
The week before was 0.
Wow.
I don't know what it was the week before that though. Was it his bye
It's
or was
okay.
he
Just
hurt?
quick numbers, please.
So, we'll go 2 for 14. I don't know.
All right,
Possibly.
4 catches on 13
Okay.
targets for 42 yards over the last 3 games. That
Ugh.
is inconsistency. Yes,
Ugh.
there's a bad quarterback play in the middle there, but even 2 games where this was the stat line, that is not good. You cannot trust them, even against Carolina, where their young secondary is actually up and coming and playing pretty well. Not a smash matchup. You can't start Jeudy. He's not in your starting lineup. If
Nope.
you're in the playoffs, he's not there. He's a bench guy. He's a depth guy. Hopefully, he's been that for you if you're in the playoffs. I don't think he's helped you get to the playoffs the last 4 or 5 weeks. You got to sit Jerry Jeudy. So, yeah. Sit Jerry Jeudy, sit DeVante Parker. Those are my sits. Who you
I
sitting?
love that.
Yeah.
I'm sitting the San Fran wide receivers. Nick Mullins is still a quarterback. They're going against Washington, who I've touched on previously. Great pass defense. I mean,
Their defense is
they
amazing.
really
They look so
they
good.
really did hold the Steelers in check. I mean, there was some big plays that were available for the Steelers, but overall they clamped. It's good to see my boy Ronald Darby leave my Philadelphia Eagles and be a premier cornerback. And dude, Chase Young, dude, he is enormous. He's just a large individual, and if I'm Nick Mullins, I want no parts of letting him hit me at all. So the ball's gonna be out quick. It's not gonna be effective or efficient. So I'm sitting both. Like Deebo Samuel, Aiyuk, can't play him. I'm also sitting JuJu. I don't know who needs to hear this. He's not worth the fourth or fifth round price you drafted him at. He's very clearly to me the third option. Um, it seems like it's Deontay Johnson one, and then it's like Claypool, and then like you've got Ebron and JuJu. They like going to JuJu in big situations down towards the red zone when they need a first down because they know he fights for yards. But he had what did he have? Like 4 catches for 22 yards or
I,
something this
I'm
last
pretty
week.
sure he had like 7 catches for like 35 yards, something like
That's
that. His
yeah, it was
his
something.
route tree was insane.
No,
He
it
never
was
traveled
7
more
for
than like
28.
he never traveled more than like 5 yards upfield.
I,
Like
I don't understand it. Like he's a pretty big bodied receiver that they love comparing him to Hines Ward, but they use him like a small guy. Not sure what they're doing, but he's not worth starting for me. I really think Deontay's taken over as the one, even though Deontay for some odd reason can't catch a pass to save his life. Um, yeah, I can't in good faith tell you to start Juju Smith-Schuster.
All right, let's move on to those tight ends. Let's fire them off. I'm starting Hunter Henry. Don't let last week get you down. He's averaging 7 targets a game. If you take out last week's stinker, the whole team was a stinker. It was a bad game. Throw it out the window. They got Atlanta this week. Love Hunter Henry's going to come back and bounce back in your fantasy football playoffs. I'm also starting Logan Thomas, a guy who just saw 9 targets, caught 9 balls. He's clearly Alex Smith's favorite target, along with Terry McLaurin, and I think that continues. I don't think he's going to have 4 targets. I think it's going to be somewhere in between the middle, probably around 6 or 7. Logan Thomas is a big part of this offense. Going in San Francisco, I would say it's a tough matchup, but he just did what he did against Pittsburgh, so I like this matchup for any matchup because I think it's going to be Alex Smith's one of his favorite targets. I'm also sitting Tyler Higbee. Tyler Higbee, not good. As I just mentioned, Hunter Henry got shut down by New England. The whole team did. And now the Rams are playing them, and New England's great against tight ends. I think this is a bad day. Tyler Higbee's been a failure for this year where you invested him in drafts. A touchdown last week, didn't even really have a great fantasy day, still with the touchdown. That's what you have to do to be good at tight end, but I don't like this matchup. I'm sitting Tyler Higbee. I'm also sitting Hayden Hurst. This one's kind of a layup. I don't like Hayden Hurst. Even in this matchup with Los Angeles, where I expect points to be scored from both teams, he's just not seeing a lot of targets, not a lot of production. Another failure fantasy football draft pick, a guy with a lot of praise. He's just been okay, but not a guy I can trust week 1 of the playoffs. So starts and sits at tight ends right there. Who you got?
Gotta go with Big Bobby Tonyan against Detroit. He's got to claim tight end. I don't know 3, 2. I think he's probably 3 from Hawkinson. So I think he puts up exponential numbers from Big Bobby Tonyan. He's been great the last couple weeks. I mean, if you have him, he's been a lock. I think he's still tight end 4. I don't think he moved up because Waller and Kelsey and Hawkinson had huge games. So love Tonyan. Jordan Akins against the Bears. The Bears have been kind of susceptible to good tight end play. I know I told you to sit Watson, but Akins could be a decent safety blanket. I don't love the play, but if you're looking for a tight end that may score a touchdown, I think Akins is a solid play there. I'm sitting whoever starts for the Titans at tight end, either Firkser or Jonnu. I think this game's over. Second quarter, third quarter. The tight end's going to be blocking a lot. I don't think they're going to have the opportunity to put up big numbers, so sit the Tennessee tight end. I'm also sitting Austin Hooper against Baltimore. Same idea. I think that the tight ends are going to have to block a decent amount in this game because I think it's going to be a Nick Chubb game script. So I don't see a whole lot of room for Hooper to go off. So that's just my thoughts behind it. I hope you find a tight end that scores a touchdown because that will get you in the top 10. That's all I'm looking for.
Let's go. All right, there you go, people. Your starts and sits at quarterback, running back, wide receiver, and tight end. Week 1 of the fantasy football playoffs. That's week 14 in the NFL. We hope our advice treats you well and it helps you win your week 1 matchup and you move on towards that championship because that's the goal here. Drop a comment below. Any start sit question we got. We want to help you out. We want to help you win your matchup. Thanks for coming by. Subscribe to the channel. Don't forget to subscribe and drop a comment of your favorite wide receiver to win the Devante Adams jersey. It's a super sweet jersey, people. It's it's an authentic signature, everything. It's the white jersey. It looks super nice. I'm super jealous.
I'm going to be honest.
Big Tay fan, and I want that.
I teased it, and then it showed up at my house. So I teased it on Twitter, and I almost wanted to delete the tweet. That's how sweet this jersey is.
I've done that before. And it's really hard not to. But hey, we're giving it away. We want you guys to keep watching our videos and whatnot. When this is our way to show that we appreciate you. So drop a comment below. Favorite wide receiver. We hope you win your fantasy football matchup and move on to the playoffs, to the championships. Hopefully, we get some chips. We'll see you guys next week.